Honorable member, at 11:53, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is ironic how life is, because for the in this parliament and in the previous parliament, in the long wee hours of the morning, I have seen a red-headed witch flying through the chambers. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by giving a warm welcome to Letitia from the Black Panther movies. And I say to her, welcome, welcome to beautiful Guyana. Mr. Speaker, once again, I am here to address this honorable house on another budget. This time, our 2023 national budget, improving lives, building prosperity for tomorrow. And Mr. Speaker, I am fortunate to have heard this morning at 5 to 9, the Honorable Bobby on his 104 program, who reminded us, ignore loud and aggressive persons, for they are a vexation to the spirit. And therefore, the honorable member that has an inferiority complex when it comes to me, I feel sorry for you. I know the challenges of size, and I expect you to behave the way you do. I want to ask the Honorable President to make sure that the Most Honorable Kwame McCoy is part of that mission of men that we support. Mr. Speaker, let me start by recognizing that the preparation of any national budget, especially one of this size, is no easy task. I recognize the long hours of work undertaken by the staff of the Ministry of Finance and you, Honorable Minister Ashley Singh, and most importantly, the families of staff members who have endured many hours of their loved ones working overtime to fashion this budget. To all of them, I say thank you. As I stand here to address this august house in my British accent, thank God I am proud of the strong Guyanese education that taught me to speak properly, all right here in Guyana. I would like to think that my immediate response to that comment about a British accent would be to just laugh in the face of such pettiness at this critical juncture in our history. But I can't because it hurts me to think that in this day and age, we are still quibbling over a distraction so as not to address the real issues. One might also assume that I do not appreciate the efforts that have been made to put together this budget, that maybe for the first time in our history has behind it the resources to provide for our people in ways that we could never have thought of before. I do appreciate the effort, though woeful it is, but my overriding response is a deep disappointment that this opportunity to really give our country and our people what they've waited so long for is an opportunity lost. I cannot but weep for my people, the people of Guyana, who had hoped that they would see more in this budget, a true understanding of any government, the need to put their people first, to see that the benefits gained from the oil boom could create real-time transformation in people's lives. I had earnestly hoped that this budget would showcase a change of thinking on the part of the PPPC, that they would see what could be done with the resources we now have available, and that they would have the moral inclination to do so. Alas, all to no avail. In addition to the lack of understanding of the needs of the Guyanese population that has been highlighted in this budget presentation, is the willingness to defend its inaccuracies with a state of inaccuracies and, in some cases, outright lies that are mind-boggling, to say the least. Our aim as elective representatives of our people is to ensure that we provide the means for every last one of them to live full lives, to have access to quality health care, education, the means to earn a living, provide for them a dignified old age, and to use the country's resources towards that purpose. So, on behalf of my people, the people of Guyana, the questions I must ask are these. How does this budget contribute to better lives for our people? How does it improve education and healthcare? How does it allow our people to have the resources to live comfortably? How does it add dignity to the lives of the elderly? Mr. Speaker, this budget has the responsibility to articulate a vision for Guyana, and this is what we're not seeing. What will the country look like in 5 years, in 10 years? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, a real vision cannot be found amongst the collection of large infrastructure projects thrown together. Mr. Speaker, there are few truths that I hope we all can agree on in this room, regardless of the hostilities, the vitriol, the lack of respect, and downright verbal abuse hurled especially to us women in this honorable house. The first truth the first truth is that regardless of which side of the house we sit, any government in office in Guyana from now on will be able to have money to spend on the medium and long term. The gods have given us that gift, and we are thankful. The question is, how do we prioritize the welfare of all our citizens, our children, our pensioners, those with special needs? And how does this budget treat these groups? This must be our number one consideration. Mr. Speaker, this budget is set at 781.9 billion. The first budget to benefit from 31.3 billion from the sale of credit carbons, along the transfer of 2.8.9 billion from the National Resource Fund. Real GDP grew by 25.1%. The US dollar has been relatively stable over the last 2 years and even before. All good, Mr. Speaker. All good, Mr. Junior Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, as I am fair in my assessment of the positive nature of these indicators, I want to give credit where it's due. A failing highlighted during these budgets. Mr. Speaker, no matter how you cut it, our nation would be sitting in a totally different place had the APNU AFC coalition not pushed the development of our oil and gas industry, as any good government was expected to. What is sad, Mr. Speaker, is the minister's constant tirade that he collected a damaged economy. Mr. Speaker, at this point in time, I want to remind us all how this economy was ticking as far back as 2018. The rep
Honorable member, just give me 1 minute. Member, Mr. McCoy, Honorable Minister, you're in my right ear. I can't help but hear you. So if you could tone down what you want to say and be a bit more effective in it. I'm just getting now overly annoyed with the shouting from you. You get back your time, honorable member. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I wanted to remind the junior minister of how strong our economy was in 2015. And these are the words of the International Monetary Fund. And of course, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be sharing all these documents with the Parliament. And this is what it says. Ghana's economic growth strengthened in 2018 with broad-based expansion across all major sectors. Real, real GDP growth grew by 4.1%. And then it goes on to say, Production, which was largely financed by direct foreign investments, petroleum sector, public finance, improved in 28 as the central government deficit came in at 3.5% of GDP, lower than the budgeted 5.4, and it goes on. Economic growth increased. The medium-term prospects are very favorable as oil production is on schedule to begin in early 2020. We started in 2019. And there's the director saying that the management of Ghana's oil wealth and the emphasis they need to complement it. They are commended that the National Resource Fund framework aims to save some of the resources. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to spend more time, but to say there was no bankrupt economy in 2018. So, Mr. Speaker, and this is where I want to say that, since assuming office, I want to quote page 1 by the Honorable Minister, who I see had to get up and leave, and that's okay. I know how that feels. Since assuming office, our government set about the task of repairing the deep and lasting damage caused by 5 years of misrule and mismanagement. Now, what's good is that he introduced to this parliament the term intellectual dishonesty. And it's interesting that the minister himself is a victim of his own intellectual dishonesty. So, Mr. Speaker, the shouts that nothing was done have been resounding. But as I said, the facts are here on the emergence of Guyana's oil and gas industry, which the APNO AFC so carefully charted so that all Guyanese could reap the benefits. And in terms, we know that the road to first oil 2015 to 2019, I want to mention some of the things that we achieved in those 4 short years with less money to spend and restrictions on spending money. We strengthened the GGMC, GRA, EPA, signed a new agreement, a production license, established the EITI, established a Department of Energy, and even created the very first GIPEX oil conference. A big oil conference. We keep hearing that it's the first time, it's the first time. We did it in 2018. 650 persons paid to come. And that was when we were in government. We signed bilateral partnerships, MOUs for training, and got support from the World Bank, IDB, IMF, the Chatham House, the Royal Institute, the Oxford University. It goes on. Tons of work was done, Mr. Speaker, by hard-working, committed Guyanese. It's time we give credit where it's due. Mr. Speaker, I note that in 2016, our inflation rate was 1.4, 2017, 1.5, 2018, 1.6, 2019, 0.1, by the same government that supposedly mismanaged the economy. Today, it's a whopping 7.2% and rising as the food cost highlights. Prudent management of the inflation rate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we look at Appendix 6 in the budget, of course, it talks about our public debt. And I don't want to list all the figures because of time, but I just want to say in 2018, it was 1.79 billion, and by this year, we expect it to be 4.4 billion. Mr. Speaker, the minister states on page 26, since returning to office, we invested over 10 billion in plant and equipment. This year, sugar gets over 4 billion. And yet, Mr. Speaker, when the coalition was in power and so-called mismanaged the industry, in 2019, 92,282 tons of sugar was produced. And in 2022, under the excellent management of Mr. Singh, the PPPC could barely produce 47,000 tons. This does not make a lot of business sense, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't have to repeat the pain our citizens are experiencing with the high cost of living. We've heard the present cost of items in the basic bread basket of goods. And I'm asking, is this really the best we could do? This fastest growing economy in the world, one of them. The best we could do, Mr. Speaker, is to give the pensioners $5,000 increase. Mr. Speaker, allow me, allow me to directly show good quality depends. A bill for $4,000. And I know depends can be bought cheaper in Guyana. But it was a pensioner that said to me, Miss Cathy, we buy this one because it lasts a little longer. So your $5,000 increase would be spent on 18 depends. And maybe we could throw in a bottle of Ensure for the pensioners. Is that the best we can do? Mr. Singh, Honorable Minister Ashley Singh, you and this PPP government have given the pensioners nothing really. And that's why we had recommended 50%, 50,000. Our persons with special needs, whom the Minister of Education boasts we're going to do more for, which is good. They get an increase of $2,000. Really, Mr. Speaker? That is actually 2 taxi drops, assuming you're living in Georgetown. If you're living anywhere near her Stelling, it would be 2,000 or 2,500, depending on the time of day. Mr. Speaker, there has been much debate about the future of education, and I am strong and I support the programs that are going to improve the ability to give a higher quality education to our students. But Mr. Speaker, we have been told, but we have to ask, how come with a budget of over 700 billion, we have to wait until 2025 for the students, the university students, to get a little something? Mr. Speaker, could we give them a 50% reduction in the fees? Get creative, work together, maybe arrange a 25% rebate, something to help the students in these difficult times. How can we justify putting $4 billion into sports? And I'm a strong supporter of sports. How can we support and justify $4 billion in sports and a little over $3 billion for the University of Guyana, the premier institution where we and the private sector expect our qualified Guyanese students to come out of from, especially given the local content requirements? 5 of the 8 faculties at UG are science-based. Within the Faculty of Social Sciences, there are 12 different disciplines. How do you justify gold scholarship programs, getting about half of UG's budget with no physical infrastructure of that size to work with? Mr. Speaker, politics should never intrude on our educational capabilities. The Learning Channel, quite possibly, is the most important mass education tool for the primary and secondary education process, education in Guyana, and it must be commended. But this entity has been unable to reach its full potential because it continues to be constrained by nepotism and limited thinking. Why should someone who is related to the sitting Minister of Education be running that facility with no broadcast experience and no education background? These are the issues that continue to plague us, and these are the issues that have to be addressed. Mr. Speaker, we could have used the opportunity of these debates to discuss these issues. Mr. Speaker, how is it possible that the APNU AFC coalition, at a time when there were no oil reserves, was able to make permanent salary increases in wages and salaries for teachers, nurses, doctors, the defense services, police, and security forces? It moved from 39,570 in 2015. And again, I don't want to break down, spend time on that, but it moved from just over 39,000 to 70,000 by 2019, a 77% increase. Mr. Speaker, I want Guyanese to understand what I'm saying. I'm making a distinction between putting and increasing your minimum salary and as opposed to one-off cash grants. I want Guyanese to understand that if you were receiving a minimum wage of 39,570 in 2015, and you then started to get by 2019 70,000, it means you were getting an extra 30,430 every month before tax. Imagine by the end of the year, you would have received approximately, roughly, don't knock me down fit, $365,000 extra. Now, do you understand, Guyanese, how small that 35,000 one-off cash grant really is? We recommended taking the minimum wage to 100,000. Don't the poorest Guyanese have rent or a mortgage, family, electricity, and all those costs to pay? Mr. Speaker, what is of great concern, which is reflected in this budget, is the government's propensity to provide cash grants instead of increasing wages and salary. And what exactly is a cash grant? I want everybody to understand we're in support of cash grants, but it must be a top up. Because guess what? You can't take a cash grant to a bank. You can't use a cash grant that is unpredictable and subjected to the whims and the fancies of this government to give it to you. You can do very little long term with it. So these are the fundamental problems. Mr. Speaker, on the tourism development front, I want to say that what is important, what we have to look at long term with regards to our long term plans for economic development is that information must be driven by data, right? All of us in this house, including the private sector, must be given the opportunity to interrogate that data. Mr. Speaker, I asked the question to the Honorable Minister of Tourism. What is the data that we can use that supports the decision to place a much anticipated hospitality training school 6 hours away from the geographical area of our new hotels? All the new hotels are going to be on the coast. And yet, we're asking that investor to work out residential accommodation for his staff to be able to go to the hospitality school, which we know is an important institution. I worked and did studies on that also. So why would you give a potential investor that burden when we know they want to ensure that their staff can go on with on-the-job training? And that's why I say to this honorable house, why not an urban area, is a totally unacceptable answer. Bring the data, Mrs. Minister. It's the same kind of thinking and lack of data that allowed us to create a synthetic track in a location where our data does not show the majority of our athletes do not come from, and the athletes that can use it have to take 2 buses each way. Mr. Speaker, I want to note that when it comes to some sectors, reductions have been huge. Gold is a classic example, where the earnings were 876.6 million by 2022, but had fallen to 80.30 million. Mr. Speaker, sadly, one of the problems we've had in this debate, these debates, has been the gross inaccuracy deliberately voiced and spurted out here. And one of those is that of the Guyana Forestry Commission. We heard the Junior Minister of Finance, the Minister of Agriculture, and others speak of the APNU AFC bankrupting the Forestry Commission. Mr. Speaker, again, nothing could be further from the truth. The report of the Forensic Audit and Review of the Guyana Forestry Commission, dated December 31st, 2015, by Anand Gulsaran on page 8, informs us of a totally different position. And I quote, during the period 2006 to 2010, the Commission made payments to other state agencies totaling 1.28 billion out of its retained earnings. Of this amount, two payments totaling 600 million were made to NISL to meet the cost of the 2007 World Cup, to assist in the construction of the Marriott, and another 600 million transferred to the governor of the Bank of Guyana as the liquidator for the Colonial Life Insurance CLICO. So you see where that money went prior to 2015. And at section 22(1) of the Act, we're reminded the Act prohibits the Commission from making a loan or any grant except for the purposes of carrying on the functions of the Commission. Despite that, a grant of US 600,000 was made to the Iraqama International Center. Now, I'm a strong supporter of the Iraqama. I have visited several times, encourage my family when they come to go and visit. However, let's not talk about violating the law when you are doing it yourself. 1.36, the Commission's main operating bank account, was overdrawn by 90.2 million by the 31st of May 2015. And the interest was 489,204,000. That's what we're talking about. Mr. Speaker, I want to go also to this report that was tabled in this house, signed away, I think it's called. What a collection of, I won't say what it is. But I am going to ask the Parliament to share this information. The Honorable Minister on this side, Minister Rodriguez, came here and pontificated about the Global Witness Report. She stressed the C word. You know the C word, right? We can't say it, but you know. That's it, right. She stressed the C word. But what she did not do is state that Global Witness themselves withdrew their report, and that Forbes magazine did a story on the withdrawal of that report. So the information is here, and we may have forgotten our own Guyana Oil Now. Global Witness withdraws report on Guyana. It's right here. And then from Global Witness, it says, statement on the withdrawal of the Global Witness report on Guyana's oil sector. Our February 2020 report on Guyana's oil sector, signed away, is not consistent with that focus. And for this reason, we've decided to remove it from our website and stop using it in our campaigning work. We regret any unintended negative consequences arising from this report. And then the assessment that Forbes magazine, the very reputable Forbes magazine, made on this, and let me quote, this is Forbes magazine. Yet on closer examination of the report, right, Forbes magazine, the allegations do not really stand up. Global Witness states repeatedly and unequivocally that it found no evidence of wrongdoing by ExxonMobil or any of the government ministers. Imagine that. And this is what Forbes magazine says. In the end, just a few hours of analysis reveals the Global Witness report for what it is: an ideologically motivated attack piece aimed at some of the biggest players in the oil and gas industry, and I will add the former government, right? Which, given the group's history, comes at no surprise at all. Mr. Speaker, we all know that mercury was contracted and Global Witness was just one of the many deliverables. And our vice president said publicly it was money well spent. Mr. Speaker, I would like to now look quickly at the area for which I was responsible as former Minister of Public Telecommunications. And I want to look at this because I listened in horror as the Minister of Amerindian Affairs came to this House, stood at this podium, and uttered a battery of untruths. Mr. Speaker, it was disingenuous at least and downright dishonest at worst to suggest that nothing was done in this sector under the last administration.
Honorable member, the dishonest to be withdrawn, but before I ask that you get an additional 5 minutes,
Thank
you
you.
had,
The
you had,
Comrades, my apologies.
I said
Comrades,
before,
Comrades,
you had made a statement that the Honorable Minister Manichan had hired her relative at the Learning Channel. I would also need you to produce that evidence. Honorable Member, Mr. Jones.
thank you. Comrade Chairman, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Member, clock starts at 12:25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I will withdraw that word and just say that the former minister was mendacious in her utterings when she stood at this program. Mr. Speaker, she spoke about finding a variety of tablets and batteries. Remember that? At a location in Diamond. And this is where I would like to submit also the audit of the one laptop per family project. And Mr. Speaker, item 7. Our procedures revealed that the management was unable to account for an additional 1,875 laptops costing $109 million plus dollars, right? Laptops acquired by purchase or grant were a total of 55,145. Some 5,136 were either stolen or defective. The total cost was 1.6 million. And Mr. Speaker, lots of those were left in a location, and I have a feeling that that's the same location she's referring to. Mr. Speaker, I don't have to talk about training over 4,000 students, about creating over 170 ICT hubs, connecting ministries, setting up satellite VSAT dishes. I want to comment very quickly on a comment that the Minister of Finance made when he talked about the hinterland poor and remote ICT project languishing. That's the word, languishing. And believe it or not, that project we signed the MOU and also their photographs online of the former Minister of Finance signing with Mikiko Tanaka, the former UN representative. We worked with Khadija Musa since 2016 when the ministry was created. So don't come and say nothing was done. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, what I want to say is that my presentation is not an indictment on what was done, but it really is a hope that we can search for common ground. Let us all understand how we're failing our people. because, Mr. Speaker, an eye for an eye will just make us all blind. I could mention, of course, the fiber optic cable. And I just want to remind people of the figures. 13 billion wasted. Not a sense of this cable anywhere between Linden to Latham, managed by the son of a former president. Mr. Speaker, I will lay over that report too. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have allowed race and politics to divide our country to our own detriment. And if we don't see that the world is watching on and laughing as our resources are depleted for the benefits of others, then these days of debates would be an exercise in futility, another wasted opportunity. Surely, Mr. Speaker, our ability to understand history, the challenges that hate and conflict bring to our country should encourage us to be able to meet in a different way, encourage dialogue, and to come to some common ground. Mr. Speaker, we've all made mistakes in the past, and we understand the challenges any government may face in the search for lasting solutions. I am not here to put down the efforts to craft this budget. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, one of the rallying cries in this House has been the chance of rigged elections. And we maybe don't realize that that perpetuates a stereotype that one ethnicity is responsible for the damage that was done to our electoral process, when we all know that it was an incompetent GCOM that failed to deliver on a good election, and up to today is not willing to examine its administrative processes. Mr. Speaker, these are the things that we must be honest enough and bold enough to have a conversation on. Mr. Speaker, I want to close with a quote from the Most Honorable Lee Kuan Yew. A nation is great, not by size alone. It is the will, the cohesion, the stamina, the discipline of its people, and the quality of its leaders, which will ensure it an honorable place in history. Mr. Speaker, we on this side look forward to creating and contributing.
Honorable member, I see the honorable member Ms. Walda Lawrence on the floor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt the member. But I hear the honorable member and minister, what's his name?
Yes,
Forty,
the
Mr.
point of order.
McCoy, shouting out Mrs.
I
Maya's
don't,
name in this
I,
parliament,
honorable
Mr.
member, I
Speaker.
don't see
And
that
this
as a
is
point of
happening
order,
over and
but I
over
have
again
already,
with people who
or
are not here.
I have already named the minister already. Honorable member, Ms. Hughes.
Sorry, can I just read the quote again? Huh? Yeah? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I was closing, I'm urging that we can work together, and I wanted to end with this quote from Lee Kuan Yew. A nation is great not by its size alone. It is the will, the cohesion, the stamina, the discipline of its people, and the quality of its leaders, which ensure it an honorable place in history. Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the fence, this side of this most honorable house, are committed to helping to ensure that Guyana becomes the next Singapore in the Caribbean for the benefit, though, of all her citizens. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Guyana.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member.
Mr.
And
Speaker, I'm kindly asking for the floor. I am
now for the honorable Attorney
Speaker, I'm
General
kindly
and
asking
Minister of
for the
Legal Affairs, the Honorable Member, Mr. Anil Nandalal, and
This system has failed.
The election petition that you filed was thrown out. I will tell you about it. And that is what was important about the case. Mr. Speaker, the opportunity is now mine to offer a few remarks on the 2023 budget. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by offering my warm congratulations to my venerable brother, the distinguished Minister of Finance and his industrious staff for preparing and presenting the third installment of our government's fiscal plan and developmental agenda for this financial year in the form of Budget 2023. Mr. Speaker, much to the incomprehension of those on the other side, the honorable members, Budget 2023 was not crafted in abstract. In the year 2020, the People's Progressive Party Civic went to the electorate with a 5-year development plan. We explained that plan to the electorate, and we asked the electorate that if they support that plan, then elect us to government and we will implement that plan. And elect us they did, Mr. Speaker, and we are implementing the third installment of that plan. Mr. Speaker, the manifesto that we went to the people with, I have it in my hand. And if I am only to look at the front page of that manifesto, it contains certain promises which we went to the electorate with. And I will, Mr. Speaker, just go through briefly as a report card in relation to those promises. The first one, removal of taxes on cell phone and data. We delivered that in 2021. 20,000 online scholarships. This is a 5-year promise. We delivered over half in 2.5 years. And we will pass the 20,000 mark this year. Mr. Speaker, reversal of 200 taxes and fees. Delivered, done. 40,000 per month in old age pension in our 3rd year. We are at $42,000. We are going to surpass this in the 5-year period. Reversal of VAT on electricity, water, food, and medical supplies, delivered. Restoration of electricity and water subsidies to pension, delivered. 50,000 because we care cash grant, we are at 40,000 in the 3rd year. Creation of 50,000 new jobs. We have put the sugar workers back. We have put the 2,000 CSOs back. We have put the 30,000 persons that you dismissed, and we have created thousands of jobs in the oil and gas sector and all the other sectors in the country. A plan to reduce crime, Mr. Speaker. I have here what the crime chief said, November the 17th, 2022. Crime chief says serious crime has dropped by 19% last year. And I have what the Commissioner of Police said in December the 17th, 2022, cops record 30% decrease in serious crimes in Georgetown. Mr. Speaker, free education from
another beautifully put presentation as is customary in the house. And we will have a wonderful conversation with her because, in these budgets, there are a lot of time constraints, a lot of constraints in word. So let's talk. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here talking with you, and of course to be able to reach out and connect with the members of the public.
Very well. So we saw your presentation a short while ago, and we saw those punches coming left, right, and sent it to the government. You talked about a lot of the projects that were completed to start with under the coalition, and things that were left to them that they did not fulfill. Let's talk about that.
Yes, one of the things that I feel strongly about, which is very lacking in our budget debates, is that first of all, we have a very low level of debate. And persons come to the podium and just speak a range of untruths. It is extremely dishonest. And of course, I use the example of the Global Witness Report.
Yeah.
The public doesn't know, so I will reiterate. Imagine Minister Rodriguez will come to the podium and pontificate and show a report, a Global Witness Report, which really said some inaccuracies regarding our oil and gas industry. And of course, I'm talking at the time, this report came out in December 2019. Now, Global Witness themselves removed that report from their website and issued an apology saying this was wrong, the contents were not accurate, and I quoted from the document, we apologize for any negative uh, impacts from this report. Forbes magazine did a story on the withdrawal of the report, saying that this was irresponsible and typical of Global Witness. But yet, this is the report that says, proves that this was a corrupt government. And in the global, in the Forbes account of the report, they actually apologized to the government of Guyana and said that this was, totally unreasonable. So we can't come to this house and have the public listen and hear things and you not be truthful and present the right information. The Minister of Amerindian Affairs said that nothing was done in ICT. And she talks about training a couple of hundred people. We trained, Sanika, more close to 4,500 people in 3 years. We created over 200 ICT hubs.
Yeah.
Schools know we connected over 100 primary and then another 100 secondary schools. We put into operation a fiber optic cable that the former PPP government had sitting there. It was a project with the government of China. And that project was completed in 2012. But they never put that cable into operation, into use, until we put it into use in 2016. So, all governments make mistakes.
Yeah.
But to me, you have to be responsible in what you say, and you have to be truthful in what you say.
I think the issue you're pointing out is something that we have been discussing every day as we sit
Yeah.
with MPs, is the level of dishonesty
Yep.
that you're hearing coming from the podium on the government side. And I mean, to say that nothing was done in ITC would be like something that the public themselves know, because even in Georgetown, you're talking about what was done in the interior areas. Even in Georgetown, because of that project that you launched under your ministry, people were able to go to certain areas in town and connect to their phones and receive internet.
Exactly.
And some of that is still accessible in
Yes.
some parts. So
Yes.
I don't understand how you go and you just say that without anything.
Absolutely. And what I'm trying to say is that if we want to truly develop this country, then we have to be able to build on what was done before. Some of those ICT hubs have been allowed to just not to fall into disrepair. They haven't maintained the equipment. You know, we gave out laptops to teachers.
Yeah.
We gave out, and this is throughout the hinterland, throughout the coast, all over. We gave out tablets. As I said, we did internet. You know, one of the things too is that they constantly bash the APNU AFC government, suggesting that the economy was in tatters. And that's why I read from the IMF report.
Yeah.
The IMF report in 2018 complimented Guyana on the great strides that we were making. We didn't have inflation at 7.2%, which we have now. You know, we hadn't spent, we didn't have a sugar industry that got another $4 billion, although they're producing almost half
Okay.
the amount of sugar that they produced. And this is where we're saying, if you have an industry that's not producing the way it should, why not put that extra money, instead of putting it all into sugar, can you give the university students a little rebate? You know, we know that the cost of living has gone up. We know Starbucks News did an excellent editorial a couple of weeks ago and highlighted that a little bit of Bora, you know, has now increased close to 185%.
I recall
That is the reality.
going into the market to purchase Bora, and it was like a really
Yes,
small
yes,
bundle.
yes.
And you know, the vendor said nobody don't buy Bora for stew anymore. It's just a decoration.
No, that's
That's
true.
how expensive it has gotten.
And that's where, you know, we have to be honest about the management of the economy. And we support development. We support a lot of the projects that are now going through the process of being designed and implemented. Mind you, I must say, most of them without the requisite very close analysis about the project, you know. A lot of those projects, we talked about it. You know, we talked about the bridge over the Demerara River. We had a feasibility study.
Done.
We encourage feasibility studies for all these bridges. We talked about gas to shore.
Yeah.
Minister Patterson was the first one that started with the gas to shore project.
Correct.
Spoke to Exxon and had come up with a plan. How can we not be honest and say that the current gas to shore project is going to cost 3 times more what it was going to cost 3 years ago? It doesn't make sense. And so those are the issues that we brought out. In my presentation, I was very strong on the fact that the problem I have with this budget is that it doesn't give more to ordinary Guyanese. And for the first time, we have all this money, more than $790 billion, you know, and you give the pensioners really an increase of $5,000? $5,000? How does one live on a pension today? How do they buy food, pay a mortgage or a rent or wherever, the electricity, the water, buy some clothes? I use the example of a packet of Depends.
Yeah.
Good quality ones, I know you could get them cheaper, but as I shared, it was an elderly person that said to me, this is what she buys because it lasts longer. Shanika, that packet of 18 Depends costs $4,000 at the gas station. So what you are really saying is that the pensioners don't deserve anything more than to be able to buy a packet of Depends. And with the $1,000 left over, maybe 1 or 2 bottles of Ensure. Is that the best we could do for our pensioners? And then, you know, we talk about persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
I support the Minister of Education in us building and improving what we offer persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
You know, when we had the Ministry of Public Telecommunications, we actually had a very special program where we had a team from Trinidad come and they did work with the blind the hearing impaired, the visually impaired, to ensure and to expose them to how technology could help them to make their life easier. And it was really amazing because in today's world, imagine that phone. Once they have a phone, there are accessibility features on that phone. So a person with a disability with a phone could walk down the road once they have internet access, and Google Maps will tell them how they can walk and get to wherever they want to go. So it's building their independence. But how could you give them $2,000 more? How does a person living with a disability live on 16,000 Ghana dollars a month? If they have a physical disability and need to get special transport, they have to get a taxi. A short drop, you and I know
It's very expensive.
that $2,000 would to be two drops if they're living on the East Bank.
It wouldn't even be two
Or
drops.
one drop.
I live on
One
the-
drop.
One
Yes.
way.
Yeah. No, it's true because I have paid 2,500 and I am just off of in the Providence area.
Correct. Me
I've
too.
paid 2,500 in on a afternoon after 5 to get home.
Correct.
So this is where the budget isn't providing as much support to the most important people in this country today, which are the citizens of Guyana.
Correct.
And our plea is that it is sad that we come and we spend all this time talking, all day for 5 days, and we don't even have the ability to have an intelligent discussion and to give and take. You know what is sad is that regardless of what we say, this budget will go through like that.
Yeah.
There's no genuine interest to accommodate the recommendations of
And
anybody
concern.
in there. No minister ever says, oh, Miss Ferguson or Miss Hughes had a very good idea. Come by my office, let's sit down and chat about it. You know, that doesn't happen. And until we start to get to that level, we're not going to be able to together
Build.
develop and build this country.
One of the things as well that you're seeing, and like others would have said, very few ministers come and say to the nation what will be done in their sector.
Yeah.
And I thought, at least how I would have learned it, when you come to debate the budget, you should be presenting on your sector and what persons should expect from the budget and why they should be happy
Yep.
to see this budget pass. But this is definitely not what we're seeing when we go into the house, and with all the other interruptions and the shoutings and the interruptions as well of the speaker. It has been a week filled with many things.
Yeah.
In terms of what what would you say would be, a sum up phrase or line to express or to, say what the budget 2023 speaks to?
I would say budget 23 is big on quantity, big on the big figures, the big projects that really only big business that are in the game can continue to participate, can compete. Budget 2023 is slow on the quality, very limited on the quality. There are no measures in there that allows a small business. We're talking about 500,000.
Yeah.
There are no measure that allows small businesses to be able to grow, to get that first contract that will allow them to get the equipment, that will allow them to
To grow
qualify and
and
grow for the bigger contracts. Not necessarily now, but in the 2 and the 3 years and 10 years time. There's nothing in there for that. It doesn't allow for ordinary Guyanese to get more. In fact, I want to share some statistics with you, Shanika, because look at it this way. The old age pension that they're given works out to 0.56% of the budget. So we couldn't even give 1% to our, not 1% of this massive 790 billion. We couldn't give 1% to the pensioners. The cash grants work out to 0.27 of the budget. We couldn't even increase the salaries to a level, because one of the things I was explaining about the cash grant, the APNO AFC government increased salaries over the 4 years,
Yeah.
77%. It means, as I said in the budget speech, if you were getting the minimum wage, you would then be getting at the end of the 4 years $30,000 more. Put that across 12 months, it's over $360,000 more you're getting if we increase your base salary. But what this government does is gives you a cash grant of $35,000. How could a cash grant, one off for $35,000 in the whole year, compared to the improvements to your salary, the total close to $360,000 a year? And that's why I'm trying to show Guyanese that at the end of the day, cash grants is a little top up. We ain't got a problem with it. Yeah, we like a little top up, but we need something permanent on those salaries. So that's, the other thing that we looked at. When it comes to public assistance, as I mentioned, 0.08% of the budget is what we are spending. 0.8, 0.09% is what we are given to persons that have all kinds of disabilities, and this is just not acceptable. Surely, with all the monies that we're going to earn every month in our National Resource Fund, billions of dollars by the end of the year, we know the figures. Can't we do better for our people?
Is this what they're telling us? They can't?
Well, the budget will suggest that that's not the priority, that there are other areas that's the priority. And we're saying you got to do it in a balanced way. Put to the projects, but put some more to the people, because for so long, what was interesting is that in the presentation, the minister said that the increase that they've given will take close to 12,000 people. This is the increase in the basic minimum wage, right? That would take 12,000 people off. They no longer would have to pay taxes. That in itself shows you that how many people are at such a low level, that you have 12,000 people that right, that really work for less, were working for less than $85,000 in this economy today with these prices.
With the heavy increase that we've seen, and of course, they keep telling us every other part of the world is feeling it, without reminding themselves that every other part of the world is not receiving the oil money at the rate we're receiving it now. Is there any other thing, as we wrap up this part of the discussion? I do see that the Attorney General is still on the floor, on this budget.
Yeah, and he has a right to speak. They have come with their usual custom politics.
Yeah.
It's a tit for tat. And I hope that what people take from my presentation is the fact that that stupid game takes us nowhere. I find it a waste of our time and energy to come and have this kind of discussion, because we want to serve the people of Guyana better as elected representatives. I would say close to 75% of the presentations we heard from the PPP side of the House, the first 20 minutes has been the usual custom about rigging, about who do what. You cannot imagine the verbal abuse I received from Mr. Kwame McCoy. And I would urge anybody to have a look at his conversation, his presentation, and you'll see how low on content and how much time he spends talking about Kathy Hughes, and in the most derogatory manner. The sexual innuendos are disrespectful to me and to all women. And it is sad that we have a Women and Gender Commission, and nobody has said that this is a line that should not be crossed. How does a minister come and talk about a dildo
And
in the
nothing,
parliament
nothing
and
happened.
nothing happened? I brought a motion to sanction him, and he was not sanctioned. The motion didn't even hear the light of day. So those are the challenges that we are facing in this parliament, but we have a commitment to continue to serve the people of Guyana, and that's what we're going to do.
And thank you so much for doing so in the most eloquent form and fashion. So we just heard from Ms. Cathy Youth, Member of Parliament, and we talked a bit about her budget presentation. In our lineup, we have coming after I do believe they may break for lunch after the Attorney General, but thereafter we will have the budget presentation of Ms. Balda Lawrence, who will speak after the Attorney General, and she will be followed by I think it may be the Vice President, and then we will hear from the opposition leader, Mr. Aubrey Norton, and then we'll have the Finance Minister as the budget debates in this sense would wrap up, and next week we will begin the estimates and the questioning in the Parliament. So at this point, I will take us quickly to see what is happening in the House for a moment, and we'll be back.
Thank you.
So they are comfortably placed when they are executing their task on the Essequibo coast. This year also, 2 edifices will be constructed, one at Luzicnan on the east coast of Demerara and one at Borgenujan East Bank, Essequibo, which will accommodate a Hope and Justice Center, or 2 Hope and Justice Centers. These institutions, Mr. Speaker, will provide legal, medical, and probationary services to the victims of domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, etc. Accommodation will be provided for the victims so as to remove them from the source of the violence if necessary. Mr. Speaker, under this program, we will draft a bill to abolish preliminary inquiries in criminal proceedings in Guyana. Every day or so often, we read in the newspapers the complaint about delay in the criminal justice system and the length of time that accused persons are languishing in prison.
by saying that. Secondly, they, in my opinion, as a former member of parliament, I had the opportunity because I had to give some assistance to some of the MPs. So I went through the budget presentation. And I want to say that even as the government boasts of the budget being presented, that it will bring ease to the ordinary man, there is so much lacking. There is so much lacking. I want to begin first with the cash grant. We will offer a parent $40,000, a one-off $40,000. The $40,000 is expected to carry the child through the entire school year. And if you are living in Guyana and you are experiencing the current state of affairs economically, I don't want to take up your time to go through what is happening in the markets, what is happening in the shop, what is happening with transportation, what about families who have mortgage to pay and all other expenses. How does that $40,000, that one of $40,000 equate to taking care of this child for an entire school year? I heard the point where the Minister of Education said that the APNU did not build one single secondary school during their term of office. I want our viewers to note that the APNU AFC government did the best they could without oil resources. And if I can only speak for region number 4, the entire Golden Grove Secondary School was rehabilitated. A brand new school is there. All right? The Good Hope Secondary School began under the APNUAFC government. It was not completed because it was a project that went over a period of time. The Yarra Secondary School began under the APN AFC government. And the PPP government, when they came into office, they stopped the project. They stopped the project. The St. Rose's High School was also stopped by the PPP government. So when you make these bold statements, you're trying to fool your supporters that we did not care about education. It was under the APNU AFC government that the school feeding program was introduced. And so in some of our schools, we had students receiving breakfast. The cost of transportation was taken away from parents because you had a bus, you either had a bicycle that was given to a student, you had boats for those who lived within the riverine areas. And I'm quite sure, like the former REO of Region 6 could have said to Mr. Granger then, that parents would have compared that they would have saved a certain amount of money in their pockets. It brought relief to them because there was the boat, there was the bus, there was the breakfast, there was the bicycle, and the books that was instituted in these schools. Education was a hallmark of the APNU AFC coalition. And if you allow me to talk, I will tell you all of the significant things that were done in education, because I will tell you that we built a number of new nursery schools. The Riceless Primary School that is presently under construction began under the APNU AFC government. The Better Hope Health Center began because it was former Gaisuko's health center. And the vision of the then regional health officer, Dr. Jones, and our late REO, Miss Lucas, they looked at where they could have expanded health care in Region 4 for the people of Region 4. And so the conceptualization of turning that Better Hope Center into a health facility for the people within that captured area was institutionalized. And so that project began. And it was completed by the PPP government. And so for them to come to the parliament and to say to the people that the APNU AFC government did not do anything for the people within this region, I will, it shudders me. I'll take a pause.
Thank you. You know, I know that you have a lot to say because you've been seeing a lot, you've been hearing what has been happening. So I know it's difficult for you to sum up. I will take the comment from Mr. Ernest Elliott. Good day.
Thank you, Shanika, for having me.
Yeah.
My colleague here said a lot. All,
Go
I
ahead.
was listening to the budget debate from Monday. I decided that I would come today to see for myself what is taking place in Florida. Because you're not getting a full show from the government media what is taking place in Florida. So today we are here. And first of all, I must congratulate this team for providing the populace with the information that they so needed. And secondly, I must congratulate our MPs for a magnificent performance. Their presentations were on point, and I do appreciate the opening of part of our side by young Flubes.
Yeah.
She did a remarkable presentation, and I think that has signaled a setback for the government side.
Right. Yeah.
And as a result of that, you find that they're coming out attacking our presentation, our speakers when they come out.
Personal attack.
Personal attacks. When I looked at the overall view of the 2023 budget, I'm disappointed. And a lot of Chinese are disappointed. I'm on the road. I'm at the four corners of the thing. There's nothing in the budget which will give the ordinary man a relief of what is taking place in this country. The high cost of living, and a number of other factors. Yes, building of roads here, there, and all these things are good. But at the same time, the human factor, which is very important for the development of this country, needs the joint services needs a proper salary. The public servants, there's nothing there for the public servants. I'm disappointed in that. The nurses, the teachers. No sense to say that in the budget you have $40,000 a month, as my comment alluded to. What that can do. Right? You look at what is taking place with the pensioners. I was of the opinion that all state pensioners, that taking into account public servants who are getting pension, former parliamentarians, I was of the opinion that we would have seen or heard something about the elevation of what you're getting. And I feel that that's one way of a disappointment for a number of us. And I feel that one minister said that he went all over this country. So I said, well, I've never seen a government minister in the Golden Grove, the Baptist, Arlington area. So as to look at what are the problems affecting the citizens. And I am saying that what the government has failed to do is to have these community meetings, get the opinions of the residents, so as to they will be in a position to lay the kind of budget suited for the various communities.
Consultation.
consultation is the main. For instance, when we were in government under the AP and UFC, I was responsible as an assistant director of CDC for the establishment of the ICT hubs, right? Which our colleague Kati, you spoke about. And most of those hubs are still there. A lot of communities are benefit. For instance, at LBI Better Hope,
Yeah.
they are using that ICT hub 24/7. And that is a remarkable thing because that was installed by the AP and UFCs. And no sense you come into the parliament and say that AP and UFC did nothing, right?
And the citizens know it.
And the citizen, we have set up tremendous CDCs across the length and breadth of Guyana to facilitate and to support the steady, regular salary so as to cushion the effects and so that they can move along with their families. Under the health system, I think more can be done. For instance, at the Nabakis Health Center, when you look at people going there, they don't have the kind of drugs, right?
Complaints about the drugs
Drugs
being
being
available.
available. You got to go to the center there more. But throughout the length and breadth of East Coast, you find that you have that problem with it. Drugs for especially senior citizens, especially senior
Regional
citizens,
MP did point that out too.
especially senior citizens. And I'm hoping that this government will take cognizance of what our MPs put forward and sit down at the table, calling the leader of the opposition. It is time, and sit down and let us review and see what we can do so that we can bring some relief to our people. This largest budget ever is just a mere farce. Our people, or the poor class of people, will not be benefiting. What is there to cushion the effects of the cost of living, high inflation rate? You go on the road and listen to the crew and the cry of our people. What is it that we are getting? We will get. Look, the condition of the roads. Some roads are being asphalted, some roads are being chip sealed. Right? Just the other day, they had a picnic exercise at the Baptist. Submissions were made by the NDC to the Central Ministry of Local Government pertaining to our bad roads. Nothing has been done up to now. Now we're talking about how many community roads we're going to be doing, bypassing various communities for the benefit of their friends and colleagues.
I think both of you would have highlighted a lot of the points that the MPs who sat here as well said. We saw them talk about the lack of consultation, the lack of information, and most importantly, the level of dishonesty being, despite you can't use the word in Parliament, that you are seeing at the podium. So, I'm happy that you were here and you were able to give your side, your take on what we've seen. I don't know if you both have any final things you want to say before we wrap up. I'm noting that they're on their lunch break now.
I just want to butt in a bit.
Yes, go ahead.
LBI Better Hope has a problem. And it seems as though like none of the two ministers can solve it. They have a big problem there with the workers. And that's their domain. It was on a program last night. And the people are calling for the chairman to resign. Because he's dictating to the council. He's dictating to the overseer, because the overseer is the chief executive officer of the council, giving out works has to be done through the overseer. But in this case, the chairman is taking an right? And he's doing. Now, they have to find money now to pay those people for the extra days and extra hours that they work. And this is the type of situation we have in Region 4. And that doesn't always well for good governance.
Correct. Ms. Allen?
In wrapping up, I want to follow on what Mr. Elliott just said. It was former President Granger who in his campaign for presidency said, all politics is local. And he always spoke about the importance of local government. Local government touch the lives of the ordinary people, whether it is the neighborhood democratic council or the municipality. And if you are a caring government, it means, therefore, that you will meet the needs of the local people. I listened to Minister Darren Lam, and all I heard was his opening statement, and I listened to nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he focused on local governance as it should be. But it was President Granger who used to say that you cannot dictate from 4th Street what should happen within the local democracy. Local governance is at its lowest. And our viewers must know that since the PPPC got into office, that they have thrown democracy through the door and they have centralized whatever happens at all of these levels. You will recall in the news all of the issues related to the Georgetown municipality. And that is not only happening in that municipality, it's happening at the local organs that the APC would have been elected to. In the news part all about Muka Arcadia. Local democracy, the APCs are elected to the constituents. And if you don't allow them to work with the local people, they are the best persons to tell you what are the needs on the ground. I'm using local term. What are the needs on the ground? Now, if you're obligated to giving them a subvention, but you dictate what should be done with this subvention, they are asked to put up a budget, and in that budget, they will have consultations with their people. And the people will say to them, well, we need these services. We need better roads, we need better lights, we need better drainage and irrigation, among other things. One of the biggest problems that you have in local democracy is the issue of solid waste management. Garbage is all over. Because one, they don't have the financial resources to take care of the solid waste movement from the home to the disposal center. And so the garbage is piling up, which in itself will lead to health issues. That's just one problem.
Yeah.
Now, if the minister and the ministry can work with the people, we can have solutions.
Yeah.
Georgetown was once the Garden City. How can we bring it back to the Garden City? We're on the road to tourism. People from all over the world are coming to Guyana. Are we going to showcase our city in this manner? I think that the local people have a voice, and we need to let their voices be heard. In summing up, we need to allow the neighborhood democratic councils as well as the municipalities to take the lead and the role in serving and administering the affairs of the people. Budget 2023 is lacking. The ordinary man says to me, what is in it for me? Tell me, Chair, is what God for me.
they've
Why,
been
why
calling.
don't get?
They've been calling.
That's the kind of questions they ask.
Mhm.
Why don't get? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? What can get? You know, senior citizens, as Mr. Elliott said, they're asking questions.
Yeah.
Georgetown Public Hospital, where they visited at various health clinics. When you go to the pharmacy, the medication relating to chronic illness, diabetes, hypertension, sometimes are not available.
That's right.
That extra $5,000, will they use that to purchase the medication? I'm hoping the Guyanese can see for themselves and understand that even though the PPPC preach one thing, in reality, it is really lacking for the ordinary.
Definitely.
So true.
Thank you so much for your contribution in this conversation that we've been having over the week. It was definitely a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, viewers. We, as you would, I would have said earlier, the Parliament would have break for lunch, so we will rejoin them after lunch with the presentation from Ms. Walda and Lawrence, Member of Parliament for the opposition side, when the Parliament returns. So we will take a break here, and you can catch us in another, I suppose, 40 minutes or so. Do have a beautiful afternoon in the meantime.